Hey all you chef and chefettes. Today we're going to make some baking powder biscuits. This is my grandmother's recipe, and so you pretty much know it's tried and true, and you can't beat it. So we're going to start off with some beautiful Cara organic pastry flour. This was grown right here in the Skagit Valley, and I picked it up yesterday from a place called Karen Springs Mills. So starting off with some really awesome stuff, but you can use just about any old all-purpose flour. So I'm going to take this nice strainer that I have and dump 2 cups of flour right directly in there. And then I'm going to take that and just set it aside and just sift my flour real quick. This is a really awesome, super simple, quick recipe that you can make in just about 20 minutes. So we've sifted everything but a little bit of the flour out, so I'm going to set that over there. Now I'm going to take my baking powder, and it is 4 teaspoons of baking powder. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of those level teaspoons of baking powder, and then 1 teaspoon of salt. So I've got a nice Himalayan pink salt. I love this stuff. I use it in everything. So we're going to take that, we're going to mix it around. Just like that. Now we're going to take a good old-fashioned Crisco, and we're going to add basically 1/3 of a cup. So I'm going to take this and just kind of scoop it out there. And it says, you know, you can add a little more or a little less depending on your taste. I personally like a little bit extra in there, so we're just going to scoop that in there. And then this is the most important step of the entire recipe. You need to excuse me, cut the fat into the flour, and it's a technique that we use in baking, and oftentimes it's used when you're making pie dough. Basically you're trying to mash the fat and the flour together quickly without melting it at all. So you want your shortening cold, preferably, so that it all comes together. Okay, after I've added in my cold shortening, I'm going to take my pastry blender and just kind of mix it around, get a little bit of flour on there, and start cutting up the shortening. We're trying to cut the fat into the flour, just like this. Or we can use our hands and use this kind of a motion and get that wet sand look. So roughly the flour will start to look like wet sand. Okay, now after I've got this all mixed together really well, I'm gonna take my milk right here and just kind of start mixing it in and making a shaggy dough. Sometimes you need a little bit more milk, sometimes you need a little bit more flour. Every flour has a variable depending on the type of flour, how it was processed. Every single batch of flour can be just a little bit different. Okay, so like I was saying, every batch of flour can be a little bit different depending on the type of flour, where it's grown, what type of year it's grown, how it's processed, all that good stuff. Literally every batch can be a little bit different on how much moisture it's going to absorb. We've got our nice dough right here. It's like I called it before, a shaggy dough. At this point you could mix in some cheese and bacon, apples and thyme. You could use this on top of a pot pie as the crust. It makes a beautiful pot pie crust. You can bake it as just a baking powder biscuit. But we oiled up our cast iron pan. Just took a little bit of the Crisco and rubbed it on there with a little paper towel to give it a little extra layer. And now you can scoop it out with a ice cream scoop like this and form it into a little cute little biscuit like that. Or you could lay it out on the table here and cut it up like a traditional biscuit and bake it in a normal on a normal baking pan. But I'm going to use this because I just love to use my cast iron. I'm going to bake it for about 10 to 15 minutes in my small convection oven that is telling me to actually rotate right now, but there's nothing in it. But about 10 minutes in that 415 oven, and they're going to be beautiful. So I'm going to get this all set up here and get them in the oven, and I'll show you what they look like when they're done. Okay, one last thing I like to do before I put these guys in the oven is I like to take a little teeny bit of half and half and just brush the top of them so it gives them a nice little golden brown crust. And we'll just get that on there real quick, and then I'm going to pop them in the oven and see how they turn out. Granny's biscuits going in. Okay, we're taking these out. They look awesome. Look at that. Beautiful golden brown. You can see they've kind of risen in the center a little bit. Yeah, gonna be great. Oh, and there's their little cinnamon roll friends that are rising. And then they're going in the oven.